Welcome to the Trashcats Trashcast. I'm Richard.
I'm Steven.
And today we gonna make it work.
Yeah, we're gonna make it work.
How was your week? How you been?
It's been an okay week. I feel stressy. I don't really know why exactly. I think I'm tired.
Got that summertime's ending blues.
Just need a dirt nap. Honestly, I'm super.
Don't we all?
Yeah, I'm super excited for fall though. For real, fuck summer.
Yeah, same. I'm ready for it to not be goddamn 90 degrees every day.
Yeah. Well, how's your week been? I know you're feeling better. At least
I'm feeling so much better. It was so. If you listened last week, I did have the COVID, and it went all through this weekend of being like just on and off. Get worse and then like ease up a little bit and then get worse again. And I was on the antiviral meds and it still sucked. I don't recommend it to anybody. It wasn't a good time. Definitely wear a mask. Don't be a dum-dum.
Dude, I'm not gonna lie. No one wears masks.
No. I mean, like, hey, so like if you're around in a situation where you're more likely, like, especially if you're working with someone that you know they're sick, even if it's like, oh, I just got a cold. It's like,
yeah,
that motherfucker needs to wear a mask and they need to go home. Because that's exactly how I got sick.
That motherfucker. Yeah, it's weird. We're kind of in a transition phase out. But fuck COVID. I was going to ask you something. Do you consider yourself to be a lucky person?
Ooh, in some ways, yeah. I think luck is, I mean, it's circumstance, right? I mean, I think there's definitely a thing to it, being in the right place at the right time kind of shit.
Well, are you the type of person who's often at the right place at the right time? I mean, you just got COVID, so.
Right, but I mean, like, on a grand scheme of things, I think I'm doing pretty good. I'm a white dude born in America, so.
Oh, boy. No, but are you looking at it for real from that way? Like, I feel like that was a joke, but you're approaching it from, like, level of, like, fortune. Like, how fortunate you've been. I mean, feel like lucky. Like, yeah. Actually lucky.
Yeah, I don't know about all that. Well, I mean, like, isn't that what luck is really, is having
like superstitiously fortune? Lucky. Like, are you the type of person who wins the scratch off? Do you show up at the right place at the right time?
It's not about that. No. There are times when, I mean, like, we talk about fate, like luck rolls in with fate real hard, where, at least in my mind it does, where we can talk about, when you look at the past, it's easy to look at that and say like, oh, it was fate. It's the same thing with luck, where it's easy to look back on circumstance and say, oh, that was just a bad luck. That was, they were in the wrong place at the wrong time. But what does that mean as far as like the precipitating factors that led to whatever event that you're referring to?
Yeah, but then, there's always somebody who catches a stray bullet, and it's like, how unlucky. But we all have, like, a lucky friend, right?
Who's your lucky friend?
His name's Lucky. That's actually his name.
I have one of my uncles, his last name was Lucky, and he told me it's the most unlucky name you can ever have.
That's ironic.
Yeah.
But you know somebody like that, right? That, like, often, even if they're not overall fortunate in life, they just seem to have good luck, even in small ways, right?
I feel like I have a cousin that wins a lot at those. I know you've been to the church fundraiser things where they have the little cards where it's like a not a scratch off, but like you rip the little piece of paper, the line of paper off.
That's Bars and Bells.
Bars and Bells. Okay, there you go. Yeah. He wins those like every year. He like makes a little bit of cash on them, and nothing big, but more than anyone else's. And the argument is like, oh, he's just lucky, like he wins that shit. And it's like, no, the argument I would make is that he spends more money on those than anyone else does. So it's more likely that he's going to get some of them that feed back. So, it's like Ray with the VLTs. It's like, even if you spend $300 and you come out with 50, like, you're not up. Like, you win 50, but like, you're not up 50. You're down 250.
Yeah.
Like,
gambling is a poor man's sport. I thought you were going to say he counterfeits fake ones, because I know someone that does that specifically just to go to the church festivals every year.
That's fucking hilarious.
And he cleans them out. Like,
that's so cool.
Year after year, West Side church festivals, man. There's cash to be made, bro. Just drunk dads just throwing away their money,
Yeah.
He plays poker and makes fake Bars and Bell winning tickets. And they do have measures to prevent it, but if you make for small wins and you just do that all summer, that's a lot of dope money.
Yeah, there are a lot of churches. They each have their shit different weeks, too.
Yeah.
That's fucking hilarious. That's pretty good.
Oh, man. I hate those festivals so much.
Yeah.
Oh, God. Those are the worst.
One year I won a goldfish at one of those. You throw the ball into the thing. I got a goldfish.
What'd you do with it?
I feel so bad that fucking goldfish didn't even make it home before it died.
Damn.
I got home and it was like, I didn't have any place to keep it, anything, nothing like that. And I was the whole time thinking, like, I'm walking around with this goldfish in a bag. Like, what the fuck am I going to do with this fish? And we're getting ready to leave. And I look down at the bag and he's like belly up and shit. And it's like, oh. So I went and flushed it. This is the best thing I could think to do. It's like, well, I guess that's not a problem anymore.
That's what you do with dead fish.
Yeah. Out here selling, giving away fish that are
in the summer heat.
Yeah. They're already bound to expire. You put it inside of a big magnifying glass.
Oh, fuck. Yeah, man. I always wish I was a more... All right, that's not true. When I'm around super lucky people, I feel a tad envious of them. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm definitely not one of those people, because we all know someone too that's like, oh, I have the worst luck. Life's always fucking me over. Like, nothing's fair. I'm so unlucky. I don't feel that way at all either, but I feel like I'm a neutrally lucky person overall.
Now, I feel like it's interesting to me that you believe in luck.
No, not at all. But just, I mean, I would say it's like the ups and downs of circumstance in life. It's just kind of a good catch-all, though, is luck. Because there are people that just, whether it's a positive mind frame or just like pure chaos theory, they tend to be luckier than most people, or they just believe they are. So it seems to be that way.
Right.
But I've kind of come to think of life in a lot of ways, not just like small luck, but just that everything, if you choose to let it, everything tends to balance out. Right. You lose something, you gain something, whatever. Like, life sorts out all the bullshit. If you, I don't know, if you're patient or, I don't know, apathetic enough, it seems like things balance a lot of ways.
Yeah.
It sounds like esoteric-y, like yoga bullshit, but I used to feel so much more negative about it, and I don't know.
Yeah, it's one of those things, like, I don't think about luck almost at all anymore. I think it's like I said, for me, it's like fate. It's the idea that there is I guess, I'm trying to find the better way to describe this, like that there's an order to the randomness, but I think it's just random. I think there's just...
Well, let me reframe
shit that happens. Or it's either random or it is, organized. It's not... You can't have both. Like, that defeats the purpose of what random means.
Well, there's patterns in the chaos sometimes.
Yeah, I can work with that.
Yeah.
It's when people say like, "Oh, we're so lucky that we got," like I'm thinking of
Thanksgiving vibes.
yeah. Well, I'm thinking of like when people say like, "Oh, we're lucky that we got picked for," some, I don't know, you get picked to be on a TV show. I'll use that as an example, and it's like,
Price is Right, motherfucker.
like some of that shit that might be luck, like they pull your fucking name out of a hat, like whatever, but some of it is like it wouldn't be, there are still steps that were taken that, like, you putting your name in the hat, basically. There were steps that led to that happening. It's not like a completely random event. There was a control involved where you initiated something and then something came of it. The choosing of the name from the hat is a, more or less random thing, but I think there's even studies on that where that's, it's still numbers, it's still statistics on, the chances.
Well, let me reframe. Do you feel like you are finding a structure for yourself, that the pieces are kind of lining up?
You mean like in life in general?
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I do feel that. I feel like I'm, I do feel lucky in the sense that I feel like I do have most of my shit kind of falls into place. I do work, for it, for things that I have, but I feel like I'm also like things sometimes, and I think part of it's also my perspective of looking at things in a negative way sometimes, where you think, oh, if something bad can happen, it will happen, shit. And then when it doesn't happen, or it's not as bad as you expected it to be, then it's like, oh, this is good news now. This isn't just like average news or even like slightly bad news. This is good news now because I blew it out of proportion a little bit and what to expect on how bad this was going to be. So I feel like there is some bit of that, but also I feel like the most of my life I've had things just work out a little bit.
Well, that would be definitely some fortunate luck.
Yeah,
vibes.
Yeah, and and again, that's looking on it from the future. That's looking back on the past. Like, things worked out. Like, it's not that my life didn't have bad shit happen in it. It's just that bad shit that happened, as an effect of that happening, changes were made, or, I moved different places or shit like that. And it's like, would I take back what had happened to, to be back where I was, or to, to keep things the same? It's like, you can't really put that in perspective for everything. You can't ask, like, if A hadn't happened, how would I have ever gotten here? Or, how would I have ever approached B? And it's really difficult to put that into perspective for certain events, but
do you tell yourself a life narrative? Like, do you feel like you're this is so cheesy, but do you feel like you're writing your own story and like figuring shit out? And I'll preface it with, I feel differently. But do you have that monologue where you feel like you're fulfilling chapters of yourself or whatever?
Not totally. I like your view of arcs. I like that because it's like
phases of
it's
life.
An indiscriminate amount of time could be an arc, because it could be a couple weeks, it could be, years, whatever.
They can overlap and intertwine.
Yeah, and they, and just because they're shorter or longer than others, or, different things, like they're all equal to each other. They all lead into the same, lead up to the same points, I guess, that, make up who and what you are. In some way, they, form building blocks of who you are. But I I like the concept, the arcs concept. I think that makes the most sense to me. I think that's generally the way that I see. And I laughed when you first said, what arc are you in right now? But I really do. I think I realize that that's how I kind of see where I'm at.
It's an internet term.
Yeah, I mean,
streamer shit. Like what arc of content they're in.
I mean, I think that's fair. I looked at it like they do that with like anime and shit, with like stories and shit. And it's like, are you in your villain arc yet? And it's like, yeah.
So I used to, one of my like old favorite bands that Velvet Acid Christ.
Yeah.
It's really just like a solo act, but the dude used to write a blog, right? Like old school internet shit. And he would talk about his like crazy life. And I remember being like young teenager and I'd read his shit all the time. I loved blogs. I just love writing in general, characters and shit. But he would talk about drug-fueled experiences, concerts, all this like weird shit that I hadn't experienced yet, and later would get a chance to like fulfill those wants or whatever. But he had a lot of very interesting viewpoints, but also like was on some like a lot of that esoteric magic-y bullshit some of the time. But one of the things he would talk about a lot is, and it relates to like real science shit, right? What is it? Is it magnetic rays that come out of the sun at all times? What type of? It's a radiation,
like ultraviolet, right?
He would talk about that, and then the idea that there were ghost particles traveling through the universe, right? Mm-hmm. And I think there's like been some physics stuff that talk about ghost particles, but it's not like a real understood thing, if it is a thing, right? It's more like a kind of some metaphysics bullshit, from my understanding.
I do want to jump in and say that you are correct that the sun does emit rays along the electromagnetic spectrum.
Yeah.
Everything from X-rays to radio waves and shit like that.
It's just a pure, like, pulsing ball of cancer. Just microwave basically flashing us at all times. But he really felt profoundly that these ghost particles, they were invisible and they would float through the time and space of the universe, and that they would affect us and our minds in ways we didn't understand. So kind of his idea of it was more like, hey, that ghost particle may be a feeling. It may be an idea. It may be a whatever. And it passes through your brain and it makes you feel differently. Or it gives you your thoughts. Or that your thoughts could even just be these particles passing through space affecting who you are. And in turn, that would take away quite a bit from free will in some ways. I don't know where he ultimately fell on free will or whatever. But what I liked about that as an idea is I feel like right now my life's really calm, but we've talked about before, like our thoughts are our thoughts, but we're not necessarily consciously making them. I like the idea of the ghost particles kind of being like I feel opaque. Like these particles aren't like, this sounds so crazy, aren't like penetrating through me, but that there's the constant chaos of the world that you have to withstand to prevent those from like kind of picking you apart. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I can see that.
Like there's we're on this stupid rock spinning real fast and everything around us, we all crumble eventually, and it's just kind of trying to like stand as tall as you can for as long as you can. Some days that's easier than others, But yeah, I feel like whether it's stress or whatever, too many ghost particles, as those cracks form, more and more bad luck can kind of fill those holes in ourselves.
I think what this reminds me of is there, and I know there have been studies on it. I haven't looked up, I don't remember what they all kind of lead to, and I haven't looked up anything recently, but the idea of like what all of these, like wavelengths and particles and like whatever that are outside of our conscious perception, right? They're like ultraviolet and shit. Like we don't perceive that naturally, like directly, or even like radio waves, unless we have a tuner or a transmitter or something. Like we don't have a way to read that naturally with our brain, but it doesn't mean that it's not passing through. It doesn't mean that it's not there all the time, that energy, isn't there all the time. And we know that, light, while measured as an energy, also carries with it particles like photons and shit. We don't know that, or we understand that to not be true about, other waves of energy. And I think that's interesting that only one does that only light does that. It's light, it's a big one, but only one type of energy frequency carries with it particles. So I think it's I don't know if it would be just weird to assume that, okay, well, we don't see it, so it's not there. Or if it's like, well, we just don't have the technology to know that yet. If it's there, we're not reading it in the way. So that being said, the particles and stuff coming from the sun, even shit like that, like what's not just our own made. It's not even just our own radio waves and whatnot coming, from our own sources, but, shit coming from the sun, all the different electromagnetic shit that's just passing through us. And, how is it affecting, is it actually affecting us, and how long has it been doing it? Is it worse since we started, making our own radio waves, and, you get into the 5G shit and all that. And
yeah, there's, that actually would be interesting to touch on in a sec. But what I find fascinating about it is it just feels like there's so many things that affect us in ways we can't know, and that it just feels like everything in the world is like trying to destroy us at all times. And you have to like figure out a way to absorb the least amount of damage possible. And even with tinfoil hat shit, even with the 5G stuff, there's some really interesting things that have came out of that, because they're, how, what was it? Was it Cuba? The government was caught using those supersonic beams on the, do you know what I'm talking about?
No, I don't think I do.
We've used them in the US, the sound cannons. If you've seen those for riots, they'll use these trucks.
Yeah.
So I think it was either Puerto Rico or Cuba, but they don't know whose military was doing it, but someone was beaming in this ray of some sort into a government official's place of work, and it was making them all violently ill.
Oh, wow. I do remember this.
Yeah.
I do remember that, yeah.
Like 20 years ago, Alex Jones fans or conspiracy people were talking about it, but it's like, it's an actual real thing. And like now they use them for crowd control. It's a different thing. They use a noise one. Right. But in one of the riots, the BLM stuff, like the last 2 years, like somebody got caught accidentally in the crossfire of one of those sound cannons and they went deaf. Like it is some powerful capabilities. But with people were burning the cell phone towers and all that shit. But there is some evidence that a very, very small amount of people could be potentially extra susceptible to things such as Wi-Fi or cellular rays, and that these people that are going to doctors all the time, a lot of times it is mental illness, but there is a possibility that some of those people are actually extra sensitive, whether it's some sort of brain chemistry change or a physiological aspect of themselves that makes them an anomaly. Like imagine if you actually were like harmed by Wi-Fi.
Right.
Like, and everyone just thinks you're crazy. Like that would fucking suck. And there isn't enough people or evidence to give like the 5G tower theories any credibility, but it is just interesting.
Like I know that like hyper, exposure to like even radio waves and shit, like it's like considered carcinogenic. It's like it can give you cancer, like even just radio waves, but even like telephones, all that shit, like or cell phones, whatever. Like that's why people have the blockers or whatever, that if you're going to keep it, like you don't have it by your head too often, or like keeping it in your pants pocket, is bad because it's close to your junk,
That's bullshit though.
Yeah, and it's like you can't. It's got to be like super prolonged, and it's like it's happening all around you, in the air and the atmosphere all around you. Anyways, like if you're looking at it that way, you're worried about that, then here's what the problem is. It's not that one phone in your pocket. It's everyone's phone in their pocket, and we turned the planet into a microwave.
Dude, have you seen all the weather? I know you've been sick, so you might not have been.
I got a skylight in my house. Yeah, I've been looking out that motherfucker.
No, all the
tornadoes, or not tornadoes, the hurricanes and shit, the typhoon that fucking took out a bunch of shit.
Highest ocean temperature of all times.
Cool,
fuck,
man.
Dude. What was it? Iraq that flooded? What?
Oh, I don't remember.
What if a third of the country's underwater? I just forget what.
It's fucked.
Yeah, like. What the fuck, man? Some weird shit. I feel like we sound, if someone hadn't listened before, we probably sound very, like cynically minded to conspiracy shit. But it's so, I can't imagine actually living like that. The people that are, all the school shootings are false flags, and the government lies about everything. I get saying that, like, I forget who the comedian was, but I like this point of view. Is like, he's like, I got one kid, and I lie to that motherfucker all the time. Like, if it's what's crazier than believing in all these conspiracy theories is not believing in any of them. Like, there's to believe that everything that you hear from, the government is all 100% true, and the way that it happened, like all that shit, that's crazier than, the people that are, I don't know about then completely gung-ho into it, but like, there's something, there's shit that's been covered up. Like, we know that already. Sure.
Years after it's happened, and they come out and they're like, oh yeah, this did actually happen.
I'm always bummed that, like, the people in those lanes don't talk about the known real ones more. Like, like all the acid studies and stuff, that Project Wormwood and all those things. Like, the CIA.
Project Wormwood.
Dude, they were, and they were dosing water facilities with acid in Europe, trying to affect entire small towns with doses of acid. And like Marilyn Manson or Charles Manson, the reason he kept getting
same thing.
The reason he kept getting out of jail when he would get arrested for small crimes is because he was tied in with this this other project tied to the acid studies called Project Climax. And it was a whorehouse being run by the CIA where they would have the prostitutes there dose the Johns with like aerosol acid and different psychedelics so they could test the effects of these drugs on unknowing participants. And this was all part of the Manchurian Candidate shit and like all the psychedelic trials. And it's like that they sound so far-fetched, but it's like these are things that have been released. People wrote books on them. Like I'm sure tons of things get exaggerated or things that get lost, but there's like known facts about them that you can follow up on. But instead they talk about like the most like Jewish space lasers.
Yeah. Bigfoot's real. I seen that motherfucker out there.
All right, where do you land on Bigfoot?
Oh, I don't think Bigfoot's real. I think it's the coolest story, though. I don't even think it's cool. I like cryptids. I like the idea of cryptids. I think they're very cool.
All right, what's your favorite cryptid?
Honestly, I think Bigfoot. I mean, he's up there for sure.
Dude, he seems like such a loser.
No, man, it's just a big hairy motherfucker that lives out in the woods and probably eats and kills people and shit.
He looks so dopey with his little pouch belly and big swinging
There's
arms.
no good pictures of Bigfoot. You can't say that.
Oh man.
The one I liked a lot when I was young. I really liked the Loch Ness Monster. And I thought it was wild because I didn't understand that like what a cryptid was. It was just like, oh yeah, the Loch Ness Monster. It lives out in the Loch Ness, and it's like, how is it still there? And like no one, like how are we not investigating this? Like how come we're?
It's funny, both the guy that took that original famous Bigfoot photo and the guy that made the first Nessie thing, both of those guys have admitted to it, and it. Like, the costume of that original Bigfoot photo is the son has it now of the guy, and the guy who started Nessie or whatever, they have his setup, and it's a remote control boat with this like rubber.
That's funny.
Yeah, it's so goofy.
That's pretty fucking funny.
And then think of like how many mentally ill people over the years like clung to this and made it their life.
Yeah.
How much tourism and shit was generated. Like
that's the one that kills me. It's like how much, tourism that can gain from, telling goofy shit. And I feel like, I mean, we still get away with that shit now. Like gimmicks sell, absolutely. But especially back before the internet, like when this was like a thing, and it's like
early internet.
There was no research to be done about it unless, you went to the place and like check shit out there. Cause like
paid for the boat tour, stayed at the Loch Ness Hotel.
Yeah, exactly. God. You go to, we went to the fucking Stanley Hotel out there in Colorado, the hotel that The Shining's based on.
Did you?
And, yeah. We went there with my aunt when we were out there. Shouts out to Anton.
That's dope.
And it was really good. We went there for lunch. We were like driving through this, national park, and it was like on the way. Kick-ass building, really cool, but like, all over the place they're advertising the paranormal tours and stuff they do. I was like, man, that's some shit. And at one point, I think we even talked about it for a second. And it's like, no, we're not going to give them money for that. I'm sure they're cleaning up left and right. I'm good. I don't fucking believe in ghosts.
No. Did you see the sequel
to The Shining? Oh, no, I haven't seen it yet.
Yeah, Dr. Sleep.
Yeah. No, I haven't actually watched that yet.
It's worth a watch.
I thought you said you haven't seen The Shining.
No, I've seen that a lot of times. I actually did
Who was I talking to that hadn't seen The Shining?
I edited a music video set to black metal by a band called Shining for one of my audio video college programs.
It's one of my coworkers. Like I had to have been. Someone just recently told me that they hadn't seen The Shining, and I was like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, I wouldn't say it's a great, it depends on what your idea of horror movie is. Cause like, I like it as a horror movie, but I also,
it is overrated.
For what most people call a horror movie, I don't like those. Like Paranormal Activity shit, that doesn't do anything for me. Oh, like the demonic, the exorcism shits, like that does nothing for me.
No, it's lame as fuck.
I like something that fucks with your head a little bit and, wild imagery and shit. And that one does that with the blood rushing out of the elevator and shit, like the maze scene and shit, like his fucking frozen ass face out there in the cold, like that's good shit.
But I think the Shining would have been so much better if they dropped all of the supernatural shit that couldn't be explained by mental illness.
That's also fair. Have you read the book?
Nah, I
haven't either.
Honestly, I think Stephen King kind of sucks a lot of the time.
The interesting thing about that movie and book is that I'm pretty sure I might be botching this or confusing it with a different one, but my understanding is they were made at the same time. They were made like while Stephen King was writing the book still. Kubrick was making the movie. So
I don't think that's true.
I gotta look it up now because I know there's like key differences that are understood to just be they're different.
Because Kubrick did his own version of it. I'm pretty sure it was years later. Because I like Kubrick a lot. Do you remember what was the name of it? Because the part of what The Shining was based on was, do you remember that fad during like the 80s where like hippie moms thought their kids were psychically inclined and they called them like, it wasn't the turquoise kids, it was a name for the color of bluish purple. I don't know. And it was like the something kids, and they were like supposed to be special psychic inclined children.
I think I remember what you're talking about.
And they would do like straight out of the Matrix, like the spoon bending tests, and they would send them to these clinics where they would be in special schools and everything. That was in part what inspired Danny, whatever the fuck his name is, in The Shining. Was it the Topaz children? The synonyms for the color blue.
Here's what it was the screenplay was written by
Indigo Kids. Sorry.
Indigo Kids, that's right. I know exactly what you're talking about now though.
Yeah.
The Shining, the screenplay was written simultaneously. King tried to make one and Kubrick didn't like what he was doing with it, so he started making his own. And I think they ended up mostly going with Kubrick's and, pulling some shit from King's screenplay. But, of course, Stephen King does not like the movie The Shining.
Yeah.
That was funny.
Yeah, the Indigo Children. It was part of the whole pseudo-scientific New Age shit. And these moms thought their kids had supernatural abilities or were like extra tied in with the spirit world or nature, and would try to raise them differently or send them to these weird schools and shit.
It's pretty fucked. Some shit that like Fringe is based on.
Yeah. And that was the whole era of like, do you remember those wilderness camps? Your parents could have you kidnapped and sent to these discipline schools.
Yeah, I've read about that.
Dude, that shit's actually like super fucked.
That's hella fucked up.
Those kids were like abused so bad.
It's like the fucking the scared straight shit, just like
yeah, they would straight snatch the kids from the bedroom and send them to some camp in the middle of nowhere. It's like, you could fucking die if you try to run away and shit.
All right, just take the kid there.
God.
They're a kid. What are they going to do? You can just take them there. You would have to put them in a situation where they fear for their life.
God, and it was always over like, oh, they smoked weed twice.
Yeah. It's like,
let's send them to this camp where they can be sexually abused for the next 6 months and see if they get better.
now they got them in there with, it's like I pictured the same people from, the prisons and Scared Straight. Like guy coming out, hold my pocket.
Dude, Scientology would do that shit too. They had the Sea Org jails and shit.
Yeah, they're fucking weird. That's so weird how they've gotten away with so much shit.
So much shit.
Like kidnapping and like holding people and shit. Like,
because it's all semi-voluntary, so they can get around it, The biggest thing that set them apart from other, the biggest difference between a cult and a religion is just time.
Right? Yeah.
But the big move that they had is they had all of these undercover church members get jobs at the IRS. And they had hundreds of Scientologists working at the IRS covertly that were stealing IRS documents about investigations into the church.
Wow.
And behind the scenes lobbying to give them church exempt status. And at one point, the government found out that this was going on, and they had an operation to flush out these covert Scientologists. And I forget the name of the operation. That'd be a good one to know. But it was the biggest infiltration of the IRS and government by an outside group to this day. And despite that, they still got their church exempt status.
Wow.
They succeeded, and they've been considered a true religion ever since, even though that's kind of
that's almost like terrorist behavior.
It is. They've done so much shit like that, and they are just able to, I don't know, have just enough discipline or privacy to kind of stay out of the spotlight for too long so they don't get burnt,
Yeah.
All right. What do you think? Here's a question for you.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think of when people say, like, oh, anybody can be brainwashed, or anyone can be hypnotized, or anyone can join a cult? That could have been you. And I get it. They get people at their most vulnerable or lowest moments, just like fucking most churches. But what do you think of the idea that, hey, don't you think those dumb culty people were dumb? Because that could have been you.
Right. No. I definitely get where they're coming from. They're approaching people and getting them when they're most vulnerable. Typically. It's not always the case, but it's mostly the case. Some people just fall into it naturally.
Sure.
But I would argue, I'm willing to give the benefit of the doubt that most people that get into it, I mean, in religion in general, that's a thing, is you're looking for a reason, purpose of some type, a way to the world, a kind of an understanding. That's what religion has to offer for people. Even if it's not that, there's, camaraderie, a part of, a familial bond with people that you're looking for that's enticing about what you see from the outside. So I don't think that it could be me. I know that it couldn't be me, because it's one of those things where one thing that doesn't add up, and you might be able to overlook like, okay, well, that's weird, but whatever. But then when you start seeing all these different things that keep coming up, like, okay, well, that doesn't add up either. This still doesn't. I don't see how you can start looking past those unless you want to. Unless you are so willing to forego your logical brain that you are, because you're looking for something else. You're looking for that camaraderie, that purpose, that reason thing that you don't have otherwise.
Yeah, you have to be very weak or very willing to be manipulated to that degree, or to be hypnotized.
No, so hypnotizing is different too. I mean, it's different, but it's not in the way that when they say
you have to be willing, though.
You have to be willing to be hypnotized. You're not going to ever hypnotize anyone that doesn't want to be or doesn't want to be there.
Without drugs, at least.
Right. Yeah. You need to have, that person needs to be mentally, what's the word I want to use, is conditioned for it. And I will say hypnotizing is a little different than brainwashing, but in that way, I feel like it's definitely, it's similar, at least, that you're not going to convert me to something. You're not going to change my belief system, my moral structure, whatever. You're not going to sell me something that I don't need when, if I don't need it, I don't want it. You're not going to get me on it. I mean, that's the same thing for like people selling shit at the store too. It's like, you're not going to get me, to buy DirecTV while I'm here at the Sam's Club, and I'm walking by. And so like, I appreciate the hustle. I appreciate what you're trying to do here. And this is your job, but you're wasting your time talking to me. Like, we can talk and we'll have a chat, but like, you ain't going to sell me fucking DirecTV. You're better off trying to make money by moving on to the next person.
Man, you're more polite than I am, because I tell those people, turn the fuck around. Like, I'll be like, no fucking shot, bro. Get the fuck out of my way. But it really bothers me whether it's a documentary or some like live TV thing where they talk with the cult victims who got away and all that shit, and it's infinite empathy for these fucking losers, right? Like, oh, it could have been us too. Like, it's so fucking stupid.
I do give empathy to it, like when it's like a kid, or like they were like,
if you're born
they were
into
like
it,
raised
different.
in it kind of thing, and like they didn't realize until they were much older, and they were like, oh yeah, this is.
But it's the same.
Fucked.
But it's the same thing. Like, it's different if you had no exposure to the outside world at all. But when it's like the same thing with like a dude our age who's a hardcore Christian. They got their shiny little Jesus stick they wear on their neck. They got all their prayer bracelets, and they're like starting to question their crazy fucking church. And it's like, people will have like sympathy, like, oh, you didn't know anything else. But it's like, motherfucker, you're 20 years old. Like, you've been exposed to the world for a long time. It's like old people that don't understand technology. Like, you lived through it, okay? There's no excuses. It's different if you're a kid who had no access to the outside world. That's very different. But to the adults who tell the sad story how they were at such a low point, I don't know. I think there's a little too much sympathy for people being ignorant as fuck.
Yeah, I mean, so I'm willing to give. I feel like it's harsh to say, because these people are weaker than me, they don't deserve sympathy. I don't think that's fair.
Going down the moral luck route.
yeah. Let me play devil's advocate with you for that.
Okay.
To say that, like, they are emotionally weaker than you, maybe just in that moment, maybe not even in general, but like maybe like just for like an arc of their life, if you will.
Sure.
They're at an impasse. They, for whatever reason, maybe they lost a bunch of shit or people or either a job or whatever, but in that moment, they need to fill a void. They need something, and that happens to be a thing, Scientology, whatever. Scientology's wild to me. That's a hard one to sell.
Yeah.
So I'm using that one.
Let's go even lighter, like some new age shit, like the yoga kind of cult shit, where it's like they believe some esoteric stuff. They have a inner control structures, and that all their money goes into the group. They have to go to every beck and call, but it's not like a hardcore crazy shit.
Yeah.
Still crazy.
Yeah, I can see where people would maybe, like their life is falling apart around them and they find what looks like security and they get into it. But again, there comes a point when, like, if you get, okay, let me put this way. If you get into the cult, we'll say, and you get in there and actually everything's cool. Like, if everything was ethical and like everyone's being treated with respect and everyone's given opportunities and, you're, given the chance to be independent, you're not being held against your will, all of the above, yada, yada, yada. If all of those things were like covered, they'd be fine, right?
Yeah.
Like that's a utopian thing that you're doing. And that sounds great. That sounds fantastic if you're able to make that work. But I mean, obviously that doesn't always work that way. It seldom does. And it's when you're not, I guess it's not that you're not noticing the things. When you're not noticing the things, that's not your fault either. Cause either you're blinded by how great everything else is, or you're whatever. If you're not noticing it, that's different than turning a blind eye to it, which means you're noticing it and you're choosing to ignore it.
Yeah, typically that abuse is going to be gradual till you're conditioned to it, and
right
down or whatever it is. But like I've spent a lot of my life in varying degrees of weakness. I've done a lot of drugs, definitely been in some vulnerable spots, definitely flirted with some gang shit. Like I could have seen me killing somebody for somebody, some fucking loser, like wasting my life.
Mm.
I can kind of get how that's like not so far away, but I also can't imagine ever being willing to divert things I believe for other people. And I can understand like bending things or things getting warped. I can understand like taking some amount of abuse, but I can't imagine fully turning into something that radical against my own will. And I do acknowledge that most of that is out of vulnerability, despair, weakness, whatever. But I also feel like the people that claim that, or that are trying to like foster understanding of that, are also very forgiving of that weakness and excusing it. There's like no ownership of what people do, it feels like.
And I think I know what you're saying on that, because I think the narrative is usually different too when you look at like when you look at like Scared Straight and shit like that, and you get in there and you have like ex-gang members and shit that are like, yo, like I was part of this, I did fucked up shit. Like I fucked up big time by doing, like they're taking ownership of that responsibility. They are even if they say like I was raised in an environment where this was made to seem the way to be, if you were going to be, if you wanted to be safe, if you wanted to, have shit, like this is what you needed to do. You can understand that part, but also they take, their responsibility for it in a way that I feel like sometimes media doesn't always portray. I feel like there's a lot of that, like, well, they didn't have a choice and this, that, and it's like,
they got conned. It's not their fault.
Right.
They joined
it's like
church for 30 years.
like, yeah, like you made a choice though. You made a choice, and it's a shitty and it sucks. And you at the time it was, a rock and a hard place. You're picking the better of two bad choices, but it's still there is an obstacle there of you making making the choice, right? So like when you're looking at cults and shit like that, joining it, going into it like you are, that is a willingness to get in.
I will say, to be transparent, I've been going through, I've always kind of identified with arguments of strength and weakness, which is traditionally something tied to dictators, fascists, evil philosophy shit, like perverted versions of Nietzsche or whatever. I've always felt really drawn to that and to elements of that. And something I feel like, and this may be telling, that I've been going through is that I feel like I'm at a very different arc of my life. Mm-hmm. But I very easily can switch back to the weak parts. And I remember like just always wanting to be stronger so it didn't feel like all of my choices in life were stripped away. Waking up every day and being like, fuck, there are so many things I have to do that I can't afford to make any choices for myself. Or the spectrum of choice was so much smaller than I wanted it to be. And I really like craved strength, right? And I feel like I can, there's some moments where I can really identify with feeling like there's no choice, or like doing things against my will. And then other moments I can't feel it at all. Like, and it's definitely some of that's a bias. It's like, I think it's definitely easier to empathize with ourselves, not feeling like there's choices opposed to other people. But I feel like even if there's, even what I think what you touched on, like the ownership of what those choices are, kind of feels like the difference sometimes, where it doesn't even matter if you made the wrong choices as long as you know you chose them. Not that it doesn't matter, but that's what the difference is.
Recognizing your role in it, I feel like that's, I mean, it's like grieving, right? It's when you're in a position where you're losing something that you held dear to you. Like, so you're in this cult, right? And like things are looking good at first, and everything's, looking the way that you want it to, because that's the way it's being fed to you. And then you make it a part of your life for so long, and then you start to see the bad, and then whether you work your way out or whatever, but now you are faced with the responsibility that, or not the responsibility, the realization that this happened, and like you were, a part of it, and the hard part is, you can deny what you did, or you can accept that you were willing to accept it. We were a part of what had happened in some way or another. You fed into it yourself at some point, and that's when you don't go through that process of what you accept your responsibilities for the choices that you make, then you don't grow from it, right? Like there's no lesson to learn. There's no thing to, carry on from this into the rest of your life as you go on, when it's like, oh, this happened to me, but it had nothing to do with me. And there are situations that are like that in life, unfortunately, but there are things that, the cult shit where it's like, no, there's a point where you accepted being a part of this, and you didn't accept all of the things that was going on because you didn't know. I don't know. That's another one of like, when you don't know something, it's different than knowing and then turning a blind eye to it. that's when it's fucked.
Yeah. Earlier today, we briefly talked about it. I was introduced to the idea of moral luck. I think we could tie in a bit of that to the idea is essentially we both wake up for breakfast. We're running late for work.
We're back to the oatmeal theory. We burn our oatmeal. We're running out the door. We're both leaving our houses to get to work, right? Mm-hmm.
We're rushing, but we're watching the sidewalks. We're paying attention to the lights. We get to a stop sign. Look right, look left, no one there. We continue driving to work. And right in front of you, some kid races into the street on his little bicycle. And you fucking mangle him. You hit him real good. He smears from the front bumper to the back bumper.
You're just mashing it.
Just a pink mist, right? This kid is obliterated. You just fucking murdered him. Not me. I didn't hit him.
Oh, me. I mean, I did.
Just
yeah,
you.
right. Yeah, I did.
You're going to jail. I'm good. I get to work on time. You're going to be a little late. Okay. You got to get your lawyer to call it. So it would be real easy for the person who gets to work safe to be like, hey, why didn't you check your brakes last night?
Mm-hmm.
And the person who got there safe, it's not like they did it.
Right. So who the fuck ever checks their brakes the night before?
Yeah, well, that's easy for you to say right after you killed a kid. You should have checked your brakes. So
Did you go through a whole 30-point checklist before you take off every day?
Every day. And so this idea is moral luck. And the idea is that we're all either born, inherit, nature, nurture, whatever, different levels of moral luck. And when you take this and you put it on, let's say we got two people, one's a vegan and one's not, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if we push that luck a little farther, we got two more people. All right, we got just a regular guy, just a red-blooded, red meat-eating motherfucker, just, has beers on the weekend, just a normal dude, right?
What's his name? The Liver King?
Oh, yeah, it's the Liver King. Yep. We got the Liver King on one side. And then we have a psycho crazy dude, right? This dude, on his weekends, he's skinning cats alive. He's hitting pigs with hammers. He's a real sick freak. This crazy motherfucker.
Just a lean Saturday, go fucking
whack a pig.
Go kick a couple cats and...
what else you gonna do when you're living in bumfuck Ohio? So we got this crazy sicko freak. And he has this compulsion to hurt animals. He's had it all his life, right? More than likely, he has taken some degree of measures to avert from that. Maybe he hasn't tried not to in a long time, but as a kid, he most likely struggled with it, most likely debated on if what he was doing was okay. Like, I'm sure fool, psychotic, you've grappled with these compulsions to some degree.
Yeah.
Whatever the vice is. On the other hand, this other dude eats meat all the time. He's, participating in the death of animals. But everyone's going to look at the psycho and say, you're crazy. You hurt all these animals. Why did you want to do that? From this perspective, you could even put it on that there's some amount of empathy or understanding. Well, we can stop at understanding even. That should be shown that the psycho sick freak did a lot more to try to not hurt animals than the guy who eats them casually and lives a normal life.
Mm-hmm.
That the varying degrees of moral luck dictated the person's actions a lot more than more than we may or may not have realized. So like when you go down the list of pedophiles, murderers, whatever, XYZ, mental illness, poverty, that these varying degrees of moral luck can play a large part. Because it's easy to blame people for the things they do, but more than likely, they have done a lot more for things not to be that way than the average person would have. And I find that kind of an enlightening perspective.
That they've had to make the conscious decision. They've been faced with the conscious decision of to do or not to do this thing more than the person who does not have the same moral luck.
Proclivities. Yeah, exactly. The same moral luck and those particular proclivities. Even the average drug addict, right? We got that person. They may have great moral luck in all kinds of ways. They've not been faced with the compulsions to do these other evil things or the other moral quandaries in their life they haven't faced. But for whatever reason, they have bad moral luck when it comes to drugs. Let's say, it's all hypothetical. That person has spent a lot more time and energy grappling with not doing drugs than the average person who may smoke and drink on the weekends, but they don't have that particular deficiency.
Take medication, medical grade pain pills and shit all the time, and
whatever it is, like they don't have to face that particular moral quandary. They may be morally lucky and unlucky in different ways, but that whether we call that moral luck or ghost particles going through time and space, we're all affected by different little chunks of chaos that have nothing to do with what we did or our actions. That we all have to face them differently.
We had talked about what the fuck it was called. God damn it, I forget the word for it now. Consequential fact a while ago, and it's the idea that some things you're subject to, you're born to it, and they can't change, like the city you're born in, or who your parents, your biological parents are, shit like that. Like you can't. These weren't choices that you were given. This is just the world that you were brought into, and the circumstances that are just they're true and they can't be changed. And it wasn't a matter of choice. It was before you had the opportunity. Do you know? And this is something I don't know. Genetics thing. Is there a thing with addiction, like addictive type personality? Is that like a genetic thing?
Yeah, it's not a full on, like
but
genes.
There is components of.
Yeah, there are for sure. Genes express themselves in environments. So you can have genes turned on and off by what happens to you in life. So you could have, there's like 5 or 6 different genes that they believe contribute to addictive personalities. Just like there's a couple different genes they've linked to homosexuality, but some people may or may never become gay or may never become an addict, right? You have different genetic components that, depending on both the genes are your nature, but the nurture is the environment those genes are expressed in, depending on what you were exposed to in life, depending on who you meet, how culture affects you, all those different things. You could be an addict in theory on a genetic level, or to be more inclined to be an addict, but you never tried that particular drug, XYZ, that activates those genetic proclivities or moral luck. So yeah, the genes definitely, just like we were talking how, like women metabolize alcohol differently and can be more susceptible or affected by alcohol, just like Native Americans or different groups can break down alcohol and it affects their bodies, brains differently. All those things. It's like strongly linked to addiction, even to the point where like alcohol dependency or drug addiction is a medical classifiable disease. Even though I still don't really think it should be a medical disease. I think it should be a psychiatric disease. But then there's the argument of like, our mind is part of our body, so why differentiate? Whatever. But definitely genetically linked for sure.
I think especially if it is genetically linked, I think it makes sense to look at it from a medical perspective as well as a, psychological perspective for sure.
I think the only reason I have pushback on that is because as soon as like that, they made it a disease, like a medical disease, like in maybe around 2010 or so, in my early years of going to Suboxone clinics. I was going to Suboxone clinics I've been going for over 10 years. I think I started by the time I was 18 and I wasn't even on dope yet. And that's like when that transformation kind of changed. And the reason it changed was less about the medical science, from my understanding, and more about getting addicted people medical coverage. Because once it could be listed as a disease, insurance companies would have to start covering more shit. So that was really like, there was a very big cultural stress during the opioid epidemic. There was a very big stress during the opioid epidemic to get all these people covered by more insurance shit. So there was a push to have it listed as a disease. But the pushback I have with that is I don't know how truly medical that decision was at the time, because there was so much pressure and need to fill that gap in treatment, and because it gave every fucking addict in the world the excuse to take no responsibility. It became about like, hey, this is just who I happen to be, and that none of it was about my choices. And that's been like foiling people's responsibility and recovery ever since. Like there's so many fucking loser junkies, alcoholics that are just, I don't know, they don't think they had any choice in it, which is
right.
Which is fucked, because they were like taught that in recovery settings. You know what I mean?
And as we were discussing earlier, that when you deny responsibility for your actions, you're fooling yourself. You're depriving yourself of growth.
Sure. Yeah.
That's very sad, and that's a shitty way to.
How did we get to that? You were going down another road.
We were talking about cults, and we were talking about can it really be anybody?
When I think about my own weaknesses, it seems like the worst thing I could possibly do is to mix and match and combine them with others. There's so much possibility when people come together to build shit, but I think I feel more strongly that it's inherently dangerous, and that there's no ultimately positive benefit from people coming together to be a part of something that's bigger than themselves. That I feel like we are meant, that there shouldn't be anything bigger than ourselves, whether it's in, AA, recovery, all that shit. You have to believe in something bigger than yourself for the 12 steps, all that garbage. And I don't know, the older I've got to, the more strongly I feel that we're not meant to be a part of things bigger than ourselves. We're born alone, we die alone. And there's no group or cause or calling that could justify the merging of limbs to be something bigger than ourselves. People are like, it's like zebras. They can be beautiful on their own, but when they all mesh together, they scare off other shit. They become something confusing and a little bit uglier, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Too many clashing stripes.
I think I see what you're saying. I want to poke at that just a little bit.
Poke at the snakes?
Yeah. I want to let's zoom all the way out. I was going to say, like, what about, like, you know, like neighborhoods and, like,
bulldozer,
you know, cities,
trash.
But, like, okay, what about, like, the entire species?
End it.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Great Wall of China. Let's dismantle it brick by brick. We've done nothing good as a people.
It's fair. Okay. Yep. Shut it all down, guys.
I mean, it's like it takes cooperation, right? Things take teamwork. Like nothing gets done in a bubble.
Even a friendship or a partnership that's something bigger than you, because it's not just about you anymore. It's about a shared thing, a shared emotion, a shared responsibility for something.
Yeah, but I feel like maybe there's a capacity limit, right? Like small groups, one-on-one, like we are meant to combine
our D&D group has 5 people in it.
Like,
although a lot of people don't take that very seriously either. So,
but like people are meant to interact. Community is definitely natural. We're meant to like spend our lives with other people, but it seems like there's a capacity, right?
Yeah.
Like when it's too many people, it leads to governments, military forces, to things that become too powerful and grow on their own. The machine self-sustains it. Like we're not meant to have that many cooks in the kitchen. I think
there's also an element of intent as well. It's not just the more people there are now, it becomes a problem. I think that there's an intent involved within that group of people to live a certain way, do a certain thing.
But then I feel like even if you have 100 people, let's say, I don't know what the capacity is. I don't know what the number is of people that when they come together, what they set out to make that was beautiful becomes ugly. I don't know what that capacity limit is, but let's pretend it's 100. Those 100 people may be setting out to build the most beautiful thing ever made. They want to make this beautiful garden, that the world's biggest, most beautifulest garden. They want it to have statues and all these exotic plants. They want it to bring peace all across the world. It's going to be so fucking beautiful. Those 100 people could start out with the best of intentions. But by the point you hit that, whatever that capacity number is, the intentions of the individual don't matter. There seems to be like something inherent when too many people combine that it turns into something uglier. The plants start eating people. Shit like poison ivy's there, whatever. Like it will change shapes until that garden destroys the fucking world.
I wanna point out, you said the intention of the individuals. That part is the pushing point. When it gets to the point where the intention of the individuals within a system no longer represents the intention of the system.
That's the military.
I mean, that's government in general. That's know, that's the idea of
nation states.
You know, oh, you're represented by, you know, these chosen people that you vote for and you put forward, but I want everybody that's listening right now to go through, your current governmental system and find your representation inside of it, someone that you can look at, a single person even that you can look at and say, like, you know what, they represent me well. They're there for my needs. They understand my wants of who I am and my, my class and my, whatever. They understand what I need, and they're out there fighting for me. So when you have, groups that are like that, like, the people that are going out to build the garden, and most people that are there, I'm sure they're like, well, sounds like a good idea. This sounds like a beautiful thing that we can share with the world, and, that we can share with the people around us. And, if we can have something to do on, Sundays, it'll be a big family tradition. We'll get everyone involved, and, we'll all come down and do it. And then the people that are running it, or, there forms a hierarchy, right? As we do as groups. Someone's in charge of something. They start deciding, okay, yeah, well, we build out this lot, like, let's get this lot too and do that. Or
this garden's so beautiful, we need to take over this shitty ghetto block, and the garden becomes so beautiful they have to keep expanding it till they take over all the cities.
And the damn property value goes up, and then so we can afford to live near the garden.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I'm back off voting. I think it's a great idea to find someone that represents you, but none of it matters.
Yeah.
I'm off. I'm black-pilled again. I'll probably switch closer to the elections, but I'm off.
You should definitely still go vote. Even if you feel like it doesn't matter, you should do it anyway, Stephen.
I've only voted once, and I'm probably never going to vote again.
That's extremely ignorant. You shouldn't do it.
It is, but I'm off of it. What was I going to say, though? But that's intentions, right? Like, I rag on military fucking losers all the time. Nearly not every, but a good majority of modern soldiers of fortune, the guys with guns that protect their rights, I think they're all fucking losers. But the reality is most of those dudes are probably good dudes with good intentions. But what they represent becomes something that self-perpetuates and does shit that is far beyond their intentions. Whether it's the politicians, the government, or the community garden. I don't think we're meant to participate. We should just do everything without people.
We should do everything with and or without people, especially if those people are making me more cough syrup, and I think I need to re-up on my cough syrup.
Fuck yeah. Get some
over here. I've had to have a spit cup near me for the last week.
You getting back to dipping?
Yeah.
Just that COVID dip?
I've been having to, every time I start coughing, I start hacking up that mucus shit and spitting it out. And that's...
About to order me I actually am. I'm about to order some fresh pouches tonight. Get my dippies back in my gums. My gums need nicotine hugs.
Little hugs from your gums. Oh, cute.
Makes it sound way more adorable to get cancer that way.
Yeah, exactly.
Well,
goddamn.
It felt nice being cynical, but
yeah. I think this was. I think we got enough scored up here to call this a night.
Yeah, fuck it. What are you gonna do?
So I have to go finish my laundry. I put some in yesterday and I moved it. I moved some of it to the dryer and put some new shit in the washer, and I forgot about it. And I just remembered it right before we started recording that I didn't get my shit out though.
And it sits for like a week and you have to rewash it.
Yep.
You're going back to work soon too. You're about to be a busy beaver again in no time.
Yeah, at least for another month or so, a month and a half, and then October looks chill.
Good.
So we'll figure it out.
Man, I was working on art earlier. I'm trying to. I got this piece I'm working on that I think is going to be pretty dope. It's just taking me so long, dude. I'm really struggling with this adjustment. My therapist keeps telling me I need to like chill the fuck out about it, but I'm like, hey, motherfucker, you listen to me.
Yeah, you listen to me. I hear a lot of words coming out of your mouth, but that's not what I pay you for.
Hey, lady, how about you listen to me? Just want to work on art. Jesus Christ. Man,
God damn it. Yeah, I think that's a good cue to go ahead and wrap it up. Thanks again for listening, everybody. Yeah. Thank you to Approaching Human for the use of his music. You can find his work on SoundCloud at Approaching-Human.
Thanks, Sean. Let me arrange the songs on your album when you get close.
Fuck yeah.
He'll know what I mean.
Make sure to check the show page at Trashcats Trashcast on Instagram for news and arts from the show. Check out Facebook for the memes.
Yeah, Facebook for the memes. I was going to talk to you about it. We're going to ditch some shit soon. I got a new game plan. But in the meantime, Facebook for the memes, Instagram for some art. If you're super bored, you can check out my trash art on Instagram at Skyzix, SKYZSCX. No honorable mentions. We got some cool artists coming up, though, so that'll be fun.
Fuck yeah. That's going to be all for us today. Stay classy, eat trashy.
Go fast, eat trash.